peeling off some more.
They're getting ready. I think there's somebody in there. Did you see any paint people? I thought that there were paint people there this week. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe next week.
Mayor, it's recording, but it is not broadcasting. The on-air light is not even trying to light up.
Okay.
We tried.
Tech support.
Well, after the meeting, then we'll upload it, okay.
Okay.
Okay, we ready then?
Yep.
All right. Municipal Planning Commission meeting for March 13th, 2025 will now come to order. Mrs. Blankenhorn, please call the roll.
Mayor Starr.
Here.
Mr. Sawyers.
Here.
Mrs. Ellsworth.
Here.
Mr. Hawkins.
Here.
Mr. Swallow.
Here.
Mr. Deal. Mr. West. We do have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Just as a reminder to everyone here, the purpose of this commission is to balance the public good with private property rights and interests, and the commission carries out all of the powers and duties conferred upon it by the City of Mount Vernon zoning ordinance and other city ordinances and the laws of the state of Ohio. This is a public meeting, and there are rules of decorum that we follow. We're committed to the democratic process, individual rights of expression, robust debate, and tolerance for different viewpoints. Say no more. Following general rules of civility are expected, including addressing others in a respectful manner, no insulting, personal attacks, intimidating, or offensive communications, no harassment, no willful destruction or damage of property, and no disruptive behavior. Please make sure that your cell phones are silenced, any electronic devices also in a silent position, and refrain from private conversations during the meeting. If you need to come and go throughout the meeting, please do so in the least disruptive manner possible. If you're offering public comment today, you must first be sworn in by reading the statement at the lectern, and keep your comments to 4 minutes unless you are presenting on behalf to describe the project. Again, the purpose is to oversee the law that is followed, and planning concurs with which the spirit of those laws and regulations have been adopted by the City of Mount Vernon and the State of Ohio. So, we have the minutes from the January 9th Municipal Planning Commission meeting that were in your packets. Were there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there an approval for the meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the approval of the meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? There are none. Okay, so we have one item for this afternoon. Mrs. Blankenhorn, would you please read that, and then we will get underway.
2025 MPC 02 for South Main Street between Parrott Street and Adamson Street, amend zoning district of parcels 66-05624.000, parcel 66-05627.000, parcel 66-05628.000, and parcel 66-05629.000 from R1A to R3.
Okay, if you'd like to come up and I'm assuming you're presenting on this, Mr. Updike, so
Yes.
if you would read that statement, that would be great.
Read it loud. My name is Joe Updike. My address is 18254 New Gambier Road, Mount Vernon, Ohio. I affirm that my testimony is truthful to the best of my knowledge and ability. So help me God, or under penalty of perjury.
Thank you. Please explain what it is you'd like to do again.
Okay, more or less change. It's the property between Parrott Street and Adamson, bordering against South Main. It's roughly about 3/4 of an acre, about the size of a football field. Change it from R1 to R3 for apartment use, multi-unit apartment use. And on the original application, it works good as like a border property, because I know on two sides it's R1 zoning, on the east and south, and then on the west and north is already some type of commercial zoning. Don't know the actual, but Blue Balls to the west and the pizza place to the north. But yes, on doing I came unprepared to the very first meeting, and Mr. Starr graciously gave me an extra month to get some more info for the MPC. So doing some layouts, following the zoning stipulations or in the zoning code. Coming back, 8 units are the max that will possibly fit on that property. And it's not so much the apartments, but you have to have two parking spaces for each unit. So that's all that'll fit in there. I was using the zoning code setback, and I even used the 30-foot front setback even on Parrott Street and Adamson. Which is the front of the property? I don't know. It's South Main address, but when you have Adamson and Parrott, I drew it in and laid everything out with 30 foot of setback on both of those as well. And then 20 on the rear. So it fits within the zoning code setback. It meets Mr. Ball in the first meeting, I think it was the first meeting. It's properly served with sewer, water, electric. The utilities are already there to support this. The one thing that has come up, I think it came up here and even when it was briefly at City Council, is R3 is a 45-foot height limit. And I don't want to say it was viewed negative having a 45-foot height allowance, but that's what the R3 zoning is. And I can assure you, we cannot go with 45-foot tall buildings on that property. And the main reason is the parking lot won't support it. If you did 8 units total in 2-story apartments, like the one on South Division and the other 2 examples, is all it'll fit with the parking spaces there. If you put in 2 4-story buildings, then we would need probably a parking garage, which is taking it completely out of scope. And so 8 units is all you can get. So really the max height would probably be in the 20 to 25 foot range is all that it'll ever be. And
Okay. And there are, well, does anybody have any questions before I ask?
So I know one of the topics that we talked about the first time was where the parking would be, in front or back. There was like an alleyway, but maybe it didn't go all the way through.
correct. There is
So-
a, what do you call it? A vacated alley,
It's not vacated,
No.
it's just not
not in
approved.
use,
Okay.
but not vacated. And it only goes
Is it-
halfway.
Is it okay? But is it public or is you own that?
No, it's public.
It's public.
Public,
Place you
okay.
right back up. So if you're from the south, you see the alley actually is there is a entrance from Adamson Street, and then the alley goes up and it goes behind all of the properties.
Property owner looks like they have partially concreted it.
Well, when we did
It's just gravel.
when we did the Parrott Street Main Street intersection, we concreted that
Oh, okay.
entrance to the alley to connect it.
Apron,
the
is it?
to connect
Yeah.
it properly to the street to prevent erosion.
Oh, but
So
that's
that
just
the
gravel
city-
behind it then?
Yeah. So the city built that as part of a public project.
Now, unfortunately, it's his driveway that he evidently didn't do his due diligence, and, it's his driveway. So I hate to take his driveway,
Yeah.
even though I can, but
No,
or it's
Is it-
possible, but I hate to.
you're not taking his driveway.
It's,
You're going to use the road and share it like everyone else does.
Yes, but with the layout, you can get 2 4-unit apartments, parking in the middle between the 2. And you have 30 foot on all 3 streets setback. And there's 20 foot left here, which is the rear setback. I would rather bring an entrance here in and into the parking lot on my own land and leave him alone and not open the alley up. because no one else uses the alley down. Well, you can't drive down through the alley. You go down to the end, there's they haven't built permanent structures onto that, but if you look down through there, people have vehicles parked there and you know, I think even some fences up. So I wouldn't want to open the alley, definitely not heading to the east all the way down to the next street. But if we could use the rear 20-foot setback for an entryway off of Adamson, it could come off Adamson or Parrott, but Adamson would probably be the least problematic to have an entrance.
So ultimately, the plan at this point is to have the parking in the rear, not on South Main. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Correct.
Okay.
There will be no entrance off South Main or Parrott.
Okay. Thank you.
Entrance off Adamson, I don't want to finger up the TV, right about here, come in, and then the parking lot's actually in the middle.
Okay. All right.
And I did 4 examples, but all those examples have the parking in the same spot. Those are just the different styles or possibilities to build there that will fit. And 2 of those are 3 units, so 2 triplexes, and 2 of those are 4 units.
And it's the 4 units you're talking about, right?
The
For you.
top row left is South Division. That exact building, 2 of those would fit with 16 parking spaces in between them. And then, well, they'll all be arranged in the same way. And then the upper right is a regular ranch looking triplex. The lower left is a 3 unit with a garage. Now that could ease some of the parking too.
Yeah,
I don't know
like
for
that.
sure. I didn't look deep enough for that. If you have a garage, you still need 2 spaces.
The garage can count as 1.
So you could even shrink the parking some or have some more green space between the unit and the parking.
I know we're not talking about design, but you're thinking that they would face north-south?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
With the parking in the middle, okay.
But yes, the
Structures.
units would face north and south, and then I don't know whether either the front doors would face each other, let's say, in the parking lot between them. I don't know what you call it, what you would want to call the front and the back doors, which way you place the apartment. But maybe the front doors could go Parrott Street, Adamson, and the back doors to the parking lot between both of them.
Any other question? And you would, go ahead.
Let's see. I'm sorry. So the units face north-south. So they're going to be facing Adamson and Parrott?
Yes.
Okay. In my mind, it was facing South Main, so that just threw me for a little loop there.
And that's where
That's
we
okay.
could.
It's not a big.
Yes.
It's not what we're talking about here.
It would be possible.
No, I needed to rearrange that in my mind. That's
If, yeah,
It's just the look and feel better, probably.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel like this
Yeah. Oh, okay.
was the-
Oh, November. Sorry, I know.
oh no, that's fine.
And you are going to be the developer on this?
Yes. The property will change hands because I'm not going to leave it in my personal name
Change
for
hands.
liability reasons. It will not,
LLC.
it'll be into a property management
LLC, okay.
company, LLC, some
Right.
structure other than being in my personal name for,
It's just one of the fears that I would have is if we make this change, the zoning change, and you sell the property and we don't know who we're dealing with at all.
yes.
That's one of my reservations on this.
Okay, yes.
So, yeah, anyway, you are the developer though.
Yes, and or partner with someone, as in, a partnership for some of this, to somebody with better funds to carry it out, so to speak. But it would be some type of partnership.
Okay.
You know, of the 4 options that you presented to us, do you have a personal preference?
Well, I'm a car guy, so I always gravitate to the garage. But,
Yeah.
you know, I've been in the South Division one. That's a really nicely laid out apartment, you know. I'm not, aesthetic wise, I'm not in love with the roof line. I don't know what you call it, with the shingles on the second floor. I don't know whether it's a gambrel style roof. But something similar to that. I really like the layout of that one. Maybe just the roof would stop at the top of the second floor. I don't know what the benefit is to
I
that.
guess I was asking, perhaps, I asked a broad question, now I'll ask a specific question. You have indicated you like the garage is better, but those are 3 units. Are you looking more towards the 3 or the 4?
And that's where it'll be more of a cost thing. What it costs versus return, you know. It makes sense to, conventional wisdom says 8 units are better than 6, but then what's the building cost? Comparable, you know. 8 would be better, yes. And maybe that can be configured or designed for those, you know. But I'm not living in them, so I don't need the garage, but I would like to have a garage, you know. A lot of younger male people have cars, hobbies, and would like a garage, you know. And if you think of it that way, that would kind of be a differentiating factor between other apartments too. Now, a lot of them have a garage, so it could be an advantage on getting tenants.
And the less density might be better for the neighborhood as well.
Yes. And
Yes.
the property.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you, yes, you design the garage into it, you can charge extra for the garage,
Yes,
so
sir.
it's not like you're losing money by building a garage. You
Right.
would just,
Right.
you could charge accordingly, and somebody that values that will pay for it. Yes.
Are there any other questions? Okay, well, we'll have you take a seat for a moment.
Sure.
And does anybody else from the audience wish to speak on behalf or against or just in general? So come on up.
Please.
Please come on up, state your name and.
Thank you. Here we are again. My name is Jay Mahan. My address is 226 Delano. I affirm that my testimony is truthful to the best of my knowledge and ability under penalty of perjury. I appreciate what is you all going through this again with the tie vote and coming back from council. And I don't recall if Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Swallow were here for the tie vote. I think we had an alternate. But I'll ask again, since this is going to go back up to City Council, as you vote, it would be very helpful to members of council to articulate why you are voting yes or no. That will provide good material, just good data for the council when we have to vote on this when it comes, and that would be much appreciated. As the first ward councilman, you know, these are good apartments, obviously, and I appreciate the slide that showed where some of these type of housing were already in the south end. Just also want to remind, and I'm sure you know, forgive me for being Captain Obvious, that R3 is not just housing, but there are some other uses. I understand they are conditional uses, but they are permitted uses under R3. So just want to ask the commission to remember that as you discuss and vote. Thank you for your time.
I have a question. I can't recall from the zoning code. Once the zoning code is changed, is it then changed for good, or is it a conditional?
No, it's
It's changed for
permanent
good.
unless you go through this process again.
Okay.
So if he were to sell it, it would sell with the change.
Okay.
Is a site plan required for R3?
No,
No.
site plan is only required for PD.
PDD.
if we vote on this and it passes, or it goes up to council and passes, Mr. Updike has to come back with a design?
Nope.
Nope, okay,
He can do anything that is allowable in an R3.
within R3.
Whether the use or the size. So even though he has said that he would like this or that, is that once it changes, he or whoever ends up with the property, if he ends up selling or moving to an LLC or something like that, they would have the ability to do anything within the rules,
Okay,
not just limited to what he's talked about here.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Updike, do you have any other properties that you've developed?
No.
No. Any other general questions then?
Yeah, that prompts a question. Should you be successful, would you have plans to move towards construction soon? Or would you wait for a while?
You have to come back to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I can't answer that fully, you know. My thought process was get the zoning before going to architects or designers and even builders, getting estimates. One, architects I'll have to pay money, and then if it didn't pass, it's wasted money. And builders, they'll usually do estimates for free, but I hate to even just waste their time if it's a no vote, you know. And so that's where to me, this seemed like the logical process. Now, after going through this, I understand that side of the podium, and you need assurance or feeling, you need more information to make an informed decision on the zoning. So I definitely understand that part. This was a whole enlightening process. It's my first zoning process, so yes, of course, it's my first development type endeavor. So yeah, I can't say exactly when, you know. If it's a yes, well, if council votes yes, you guys and council, then I can start talking with people on prices and, you know, everything else. And then the pieces start to fill in more in depth. Because you go to an architect designer, they may have something better than what I had envisioned.
Right, I guess some of the hesitancy perhaps is that you already talking about getting a partner, and then you're not, and perhaps it's because you've been through this process for a long time now, and you are reluctant, even in your own mind. But I would be curious as to whether you plan in 2025 and 2026, or are you just going to wait until your prices are right and all of those things, or are you just ready to go?
Well, I would say I would like to see like what the interest rates would do. Because that's, as of now, at these interest rates, almost doubles your payment over what it was 4 years ago. If we can get back to 2 to 3% interest rates. So yeah, I guess you could say a valid answer would be, I don't have a definite interest percentage number in mind to get to, but I would like to see the interest rates drop, and then possibly even building materials too, costs of materials and everything else. So yes, it would be nice to see it come down some.
Did you have any kind of a range of possible rental for these units?
No, they're not going to be high end, you know. They're going to be basic rentals. You know, they're not going to have high end finishes. It's not an upscale apartment, but it's not, I want to do it where it's tasteful and nice, one that'll attract renters if it looks nice. It's not just going to be everything made out of cardboard inside and subpar, or just, but you know, they have some nice, you get into vanities, cabinets, you know, put in, I don't know what you call mid-grade type stuff, you know, which will give some perceived value and drive the rent. But it's definitely not going to be an elite or an upscale type building.
So the ones that are renting right now, that are the market rent, are like, was it 1,000 or 1,200 a month?
Yes, that's what I was basing some of my calculations on.
And that's what you would be
Yes, yes.
coming in? Okay.
The garage, maybe you can charge a little more, 100, 200 more per unit for the garage.
And these are 2-bedroom units that you're thinking of?
Yes. If there was more space, maybe go into 3-bedroom, but I think 2 bedrooms all that'll fit.
It's a great spot.
And then 3-bedroom, would that add another parking space, I think, requirement? Okay,
It's
just
based
two,
on the dwelling unit.
2 per unit.
And I guess I have to ask this question, they're not Section 8 or subsidized housing in your
No,
mind?
no.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I mean, you can walk to the store, you can walk to school, like, it's a good spot to have housing.
I have one rental now, and when I worked at Ariel, I had people calling all the time. I could probably fill it through contacts I still know at Ariel with the engineering or all the interns in different disciplines coming in there, type of thing.
Okay, I'll be the skunk at the garden party, I guess. So, you've never done anything like this before. You did have a rental. You've managed a rental before?
Yes.
Is that what you said? Okay. How many of those did you have?
One.
Just one?
Yes.
And you didn't build that rental?
Correct.
Okay. How long did you manage that rental?
Well, I still have it. I've had it, I think, 8 years.
Okay. And that's just one unit?
Yes.
Okay. So you feel that you have the ability to go from one to, we don't know how many?
8.
Eight.
8 max.
Eight units or 8? Because we've kind of gone back and forth.
It's 6 or 8 units
Okay.
in 2 buildings.
2 buildings.
Okay. Which could be a potential of, what, 16 parking spots?
Yes.
Okay. Or with the garage, that could be, is that 8 spots plus a?
Plus the garage.
Okay. All right. So one of my concerns is, and I do agree that it's a great spot for housing, but I don't know that it's a great spot for this housing. I feel like it is too congested for what's being proposed here. And I can appreciate you being a car guy, but I don't know that a car guy needs to be the housing guy right here, right? So this would only be in this particular area, and I see that you listed some of the, the multifamily housing in that area and even listed some on Adamson Street, but I feel like this particular piece of property is special, even separate from what we've listed over here. And even some of the examples that you've included on Martinsburg Road or over by the school, that piece of property is different from what,
What's I guess I don't understand. What's different about it?
well, even the way that it's shaped on the side of the road. Like, I mean, you can't, the ingress and egress, and it's just different on the road.
Okay.
Right, the road frontage and everything about it. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, and that's what concerns me most is, you do have one individual that's using a public access area as his driveway, so that's his problem. However, that house is going to go from what, 1 or 2 cars that's used to being on that side in that drive to 16, up to 16. It becomes a thoroughfare.
In that general area, yes, but I would like to put the driveway on my property in the rear setback.
Sure.
So then it doesn't change his habits at all.
And again, I come back to that property is not big enough. Even if you shift it over 8 feet, it's still going to be an imposition on that neighbor. And that's why, I think that's what the purpose of this municipal planning commission is we have to take into consideration the surrounding properties. even if there are renters in these single-family homes around, it's still a single-family community for the most part. The vast majority of those properties around there are single-family. Do you have, we're sitting here talking about financing, and we've had these discussions about other properties too. Do you have financing in place to execute the project now?
No, I don't know what
Yeah.
it'll cost.
Right. Yeah. And we talked about, whether or not you're going to develop it alone. And you
It may
don't.
be in a partnership.
Right.
Yeah.
So that throws, I'm not trying to be this guy, but we have an obligation to ask these kind of questions too. And there are a lot of, variables and things that it makes me uncomfortable with moving forward on.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mahan asked to express, why we're uncomfortable doing that, and I cannot do that. All right.
Okay, any other questions before we go down the list here? Okay, thank you, Mr. Updike. Okay, that will close the public comment portion of this proceeding, and then, Mrs. Blankenhorn, were there any communications received either on the phone or in writing with regard to this case?
I did not receive anything.
Thank you. Mr. Ball, are there any engineering concerns?
No, I mean, as we said before, we do not want any new driveways of any sort onto Main Street. Site has sewer, water, stormwater access. And that little section of alley is a public road, the section behind the property, because the sewer is in that area where the gentleman parks his car, and then it's also behind the homes.
Mr. Vernon, legal concerns?
When he had originally asked for R4 specifically talks about being a buffer area between different types of zoning. R3 does not contain that same language, so there is that to consider.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. This is a recommendation to council, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we need a motion on the table to begin discussion.
I would move that we approve this request, and I can read the whole thing if you want me to.
No, it's not necessary.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the approval of this request. Now, any discussion?
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If I'm reading this right, is that, if this were to remain R1, how many lots is it? Is it 4?
4.
It is 4.
Yes.
So there could be 4 individual houses on this.
Well, hang on a second.
Yeah.
The word is parcels.
Parcels,
There are
pardon
4
me.
parcels, but there are more than 4 lots.
There are 6 platted lots. The question we would have to get into when allowing on the is that northmost? Yeah, the northmost, is whether, if any of those previously platted pieces of property, do they meet current zoning codes or not? And it says R1, but it's actually R1A, is that right?
R1A.
The
So-
county map has not been updated.
So we would have to determine before issuing a zoning permit if any of those could stand on their own, and if they could, that you could build separately. But if all of them are substandard, then you would only be allowed 1. So it is somewhere between 4 and 6.
Okay.
The other thing, by law, we have to provide a driveway to each parcel. So if he has the opportunity to build 3 or 6 houses, then that automatically triggers driveways on
Driveways.
South Main Street.
Well, at least 4 of them.
Right.
You could, because 2 of them could come
So
out on.
you could access the alley, and you could access Parrott Street, but you would end up putting a driveway right into a turn lane on a major road.
So I just picked one of the parcels. It's 42.7 feet wide The R1A requires the width to be 40, so they are individually buildable.
Yep.
You have to go through the process of splitting it back out.
Well, for the southern
Yeah,
three,
the
they
southern
could
three,
be
yes.
built individual.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And the top one, though, they would have to go back through the process of having this split out.
Yep.
But since they do meet the R1A zoning, so you could require the northmost and the southernmost to come out onto the side streets, but the other 4 will have to come out onto Main.
Yep.
Thank you.
My biggest concern is something I think you alluded to, Matt, is that if we switch to R3 and then the costs come back for this property and it's $2 million and interest rates are 7%, and then he's like, hey, I'm out, we've already converted this to R3, and then he sells it,
That's, yeah.
then we don't know what happened. I guess that's I mean, I trust Joe. He seems like a good guy, and I like everything he's laid out, but I guess and I don't know how to resolve that because it's kind of a cart and horse thing, right? I mean, chicken and egg, I guess, is probably a better example. And so that's my only reservation of like, if we approve this, I don't know.
I would agree with you on that. We know we need home. We know we need housing. We know we need housing. There's nobody that's denying that. I think this is a logical fit. I disagree with my esteemed colleague here on that. But I think it is a good location. It would not be Section 8 or subsidized housing, but lower end market rate. And it checks a lot of boxes for that. But there are a number of negatives that, or concerns at least, that lack of a site plan is really what is, I would say, in addition to the I guess the uncertainty of the future. The fact this is your first one is also kind of concerning. And I think if it were to sell, we don't know who we're getting at that point. I want to say yes so much, but I have to protect the city as well here. This is where I'm struggling or just arguing with myself on. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
I feel similarly, Mayor. I know I voted with you on this last time to approve it, and I'd much prefer to see 6 or 8 tasteful rental properties than 6 individual homes on much smaller plots with driveways onto South Main Street, which is clearly an issue. But there is sort of this big question mark around whether 8 is too many and who's going to own the property. And similarly, you presented very nicely for the last 2 meetings, and you seem very thoughtful about this parcel and the neighbors. But there is that sort of big what if.
Yeah.
So since we're in the discussion phase,
Sure.
even though we're not voting, but to honor the councilman, I'm in favor of this. And taking Mr. Updike out of it, because we seem to be, in my opinion, focusing on him and his resources and his expertise. But if we were to go ahead and take him out of the equation, would we be in favor of an R3 zoning, which is really, in my mind, the basis of what we're voting on? We seem to be focusing on him when in my mind, we should be focusing on the R3 designation. And I like the fact that it in the R3, we can somewhat control the fact that by space limitations, we're not going to be able to get more than 8 units in here.
Yeah.
And so, and we all agree with the mayor that housing is necessary. We all agree that this, even though R3, according to Mr. Bourne, and I trust Mr. Bourne's expertise, it's not a buffer zone, but it's still, this property still operates as somewhat of a buffer zone because you have the industry on the other side of South Main and you have the drive-through at the north.
Just to clarify, is that I agree that it is a buffer. R3 is not situated to be a buffer, R4 is.
Yeah, yes, sir. But in my opinion, which I agree with you, all right? But in my opinion, it serves both. That's what I'm trying to say. As far as Mr. Sayers' concern about the individual that is parking in a public right-of-way, that's the individual's problem. And so I don't have a problem and will vote for approval of this rezoning. Does that help you, sir?
I really appreciate that. That's a good discussion. Thank you.
I appreciate that too.
Yeah, me
Ross,
too.
And
Thank you.
that's very helpful. I mean, I guess that really, I think, does simplify it. Is R3.
And
the
Mr.
right
Severns, excuse me for ignoring you.
And to clarify, it's not just what I view as a lack of experience. I would also vote against an R3 change taking you out of it. I feel like that is not an appropriate place for that sort of condensed, congested housing.
Then we'll talk to each other afterward.
Yeah. Wrestle outside. See you outside.
Yeah.
And to Salesworth's point, I would also not like to see, 4 to 6 separate
That's
houses right there. But 2 R1 houses would be nice, but I don't
With
know that we
one-
get to choose.
With one road cut.
Yeah.
That's another positive.
Positive,
Right.
yep.
Which is, again, my issue with that property, which I'm probably not articulating well, but it's a weird situated property, right? If we could carve all the way through and you have the opportunity to access on either side, you got Adamson to the south, but what's that? That's Parrott to the north.
Yeah.
So if you have that opportunity, we're talking about a different thing, but yeah.
Well, I think you could put a driveway through all the way. Could be done.
All right. Well, and if you can do that regardless, then you're changing the scenario, I think. But we haven't really talked about that. We've talked about front ending it from Adamson and then, and that's the situation is. I understand that the individual parking in that, he's gonna have to change the situation, but also whether it's that individual living there or not, and whether they're parking there or not, nobody's been running 16 cars multiple times a day. True. Yeah, and that's the congestion issue that I'm referring to.
I want to respond also to Mr. Swallow, what you said. I think it boils down to the rezoning of this parcel, and I don't want to be the housing police. I think the market can determine that personally. You got to get to a point where you put trust in the free market. And so while the lack of a site plan scares the daylights out of me, I hear Milton Friedman over my left shoulder saying, hey, get out of the way a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, there's still, I still think there are legitimate concerns with this, but I think it's a good spot for R3.
Well, and I do also think back to, there's some developments, well, I know in the past you've talked about all the developments are on the east side, right? We have Liberty Crossing, which is on the south side. This is probably potentially the first apartment complex, if you want to call it that, might be an exaggeration, probably since South Division Street, right? On the south side of town. And so, and it's not, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not 6 to 8 units isn't a ton,
Right.
but it's development somewhere not on the east side for the first time. Well, I guess other than Liberty Crossing, but like, and it's sewer, water. Yeah.
Where jobs.
Talk myself in circles.
I know, I feel similarly.
Do you have a question?
I just wanted to add perspective from a different scenario with them all being zoned R1A. If the northern parcel could be resplit into its original 3 parcels, that would create 6 individual parcels, buildable. The code now allows you to build one single family dwelling at 500 square feet and add an accessory dwelling unit. So you could potentially have 12 dwelling units across these parcels and meet code under R1A. And you would have an individual driveway for each parcel.
Yeah, but could I add that if he were to sell, Mr. Updike, and we were to pass an R3 designation, someone else would have to come back to us for rezoning, and then we would take those issues up then.
Well, it's currently R1A, so they
Well,
could
that-
do what I just described.
ma'am.
Just
Yeah,
follow
right.
Yeah.
permits.
Got it,
They just put a permit in and
Yeah.
away they go.
Okay.
And I will say to your point, I would definitely not be in favor of this if there was an opportunity to cram more units in here.
Which is what she's saying.
Yeah, the restriction that we have with the R3 and minimizing
It goes back
with
to
the setbacks, I think is
restriction.
in a weird way, the funkiness of this, lot
You have to
kind of helps
choose
the situation.
So, with that in mind, and maybe I need to, with that in mind, the way that it currently sits, now, with R3, can you do exactly what you just said?
Potentially, because in an R3, you can do one unit up to multi-units in a single structure.
Okay. So, with that in mind, I'm thinking it's more of a protection to take it to R3, whether it's Joe Updike or not.
Potentially,
Yeah.
because
Oh, now, Rob,
a
have you done?
multi-unit structure,
Let Lacey finish.
a multi-unit structure is being limited by the number of parking spaces. But in an R1 scenario, your dwelling unit can be reduced and you can do an accessory dwelling unit along with it.
sure. So, Rob, you grumbled.
Without sort of laying everything out, it's a little difficult to guess as to whether one is more or the other. I mean, I think it's likely that you'll get less units on the R3, but it's just without actually sitting there and working
Yeah.
each piece of property and the layouts and things like that, it's really difficult
The
to tell.
chances of, 6 units plus, 6 500 square foot units plus tiny home
They're a rave.
is rare, but it is there, I guess.
We have, yes, we have had.
Oh, God, I just gave him an idea.
Joe, you have to be on mic if you want to speak.
As one property, you have more control over it
Sure.
than six individual people going their own directions.
Yeah.
Come on up, sir. Well, we close the public comment portion. And we'll make
I
a,
just have a question. Should I
since he
read this?
snubbed you, I guess we'll let
My name is Mel Severns. My address is 21 Longitude Drive. I affirm that my testimony is truthful to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God, or under penalty of perjury. Maybe this is a question I should know the answer to, but why do we not require a site plan for R3? How did that get by our zoning code or the city or whatever? Because I mean, I don't know him, and he doesn't know me, and I want to trust him. But I mean, what is the risk if we approve this, and then somebody builds whatever is allowed? So, does that make sense?
A site plan is not required to come before the Municipal Planning Commission. They do supply a site plan when they want to get a zoning permit to ensure that what they're proposing to do fits code. In my experience with R3 properties, oftentimes they're building structures with more than 3 units in a structure, so then it kicks it to a commercial usage and it all goes through permitting with the state. In my 9 years here, R3 has always been like that. It doesn't require review by municipal planning, it just requires a zoning review.
I believe that's pretty typical among communities for R3s as well as the planned district plan development is where the site plans are typically done.
So I have tried to view this as though I live right next to it. And frankly, what you're proposing, I wouldn't want to live right next to. Whether it's high end or, made out of cardboard.
That's why I live in
Right.
the country.
Sure, yeah. This is inappropriate to say here, but my grandfather famously said, never live anywhere where you don't want to pee off the front porch, or where you can't do
my
that.
gosh.
Yeah. Strike that off the record. Yeah, but
glad
I
we're
think
not
that's important.
broadcasting.
Yeah, no.
You say the
There
word,
you
it's
go.
gonna be
Yeah.
all-
It'll be
There you
online
go.
tonight.
That's fine. Anyway, but here's the thing. If there's an opportunity, oh, calm down. If there's an opportunity to actually preserve what you're talking about through this zoning, and some of the things that have been set up here is we're concerned about, we zone it R3, and then you hit the lottery and move out of here, and you sell it off, and it's still R3. Well, the preservation's still, that protection and preservation's still there, so it doesn't matter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, because I sell it. Somebody can't come put 30 units.
Right.
They can't even though the zoning allows for 45 foot, they can't put 2 4-story buildings because the parking is
Right.
the constraint. So your zoning laws do still, and it's not a malicious control, but still give the city control over what happens there. Maybe not building placement or location, but it still gives ultimate control on the how many units are put in there.
Any other discussion? Okay. Please call the roll.
Mayor Starr.
Yes?
Mr. Sawyers.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ellsworth.
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Mr. Swallow.
How do you feel?
I don't want to. I don't know. Yeah.
It's lonely out there.
Yeah.
Okay, it is approved. Congratulations, Mr. Rubeck. For
No, the
the
recommendation.
recommendation
Recommendation.
is,
Yeah.
the recommendation has been approved. City Council. Council members, I just want to ask, did you hear enough reasons for your?
Let's finish the meeting.
Let's finish the meeting here. We'll go through that. Okay. Is there any other business for the order of the day?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
That was a lesson in civics now, wasn't it?
That was a good discussion.
That was great.
The way debate should be, right?
Exactly
Am I right? Or am I right?
No idea what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, but that was fun.